Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of artbyrow.com, where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials and everything art related. Thank you for joining me today, and we're going to head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. I hope you'll grab a pencil and some paper and draw along with us today. I know you'll have fun. Let's head on over to the studio. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a 3D word. So earlier we looked at how to do individual letters to help explain the process, what using one-point perspective means. And now we want to put it all together because the purpose of all of this is so that you can make your graffiti art with your lettering with the 3D effect. So today let's look at an entire word and how to make it all come together using the same process. We're going to continue using one-point perspective. The only difference with doing an entire word or a group of letters instead of one letter is just how everything comes together, but the process isn't any different. So we're still going to use one-point perspective, and you want one vanishing point. That's a mistake that sometimes people can make when they're first learning how to do it. You're not going to have a different vanishing point for each letter. You want all your letters to come down to a common vanishing point. The only thing that is actually different from doing one letter, which it's actually not all that different, is that when you're drawing your lines where before you drew your line until it hit that letter, you're going to use that same process. You're just going to include all the other letters too. So I'll start working on it and show you what I mean. You also need to pick one of your letters to be your starting point because your letters overlap. I'm going to start with the letter E because that one's the one that's in the front. The other letters are tucked behind each other. So the letter E is the first one that I want to start making my 3D effect. So again, if you're just learning and you find it a little intimidating, start with the easy, obvious ones. So right here where we drew this line, this is in front of the R. So we're going to make that line come all the way down because the E is over top the R and anything on the R would be blocked by the E. So we're going to go ahead and draw that one all the way through and you won't see this little piece of the R behind it. Now you can do this line as well. From over here, you can make that come down. And maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't. The problem with drawing that one is that you're blocking off a big part of the letter R. And I think it loses the readability of the R too much. So I'm going to leave that one off. Technically, it really should be included, but with your artwork, you can always take your own artistic liberties and you don't have to totally follow all the rules. Break the rules as you see fit and do your drawing the way you want to draw it. So now we're going to do the top part of the letter. Same thing up here. So this technically should be drawn in, but I think it kind of takes away more than what it would add. So I'm not going to include that one. You can pick and choose the different areas. If it's going to muddy up your drawing more than it's going to enhance it, then you don't want to add it in there. You can take it out. So we're just going to keep working on all of these. You want to make sure you get all of them in here so that you can see the different areas of the letter. And what I mean by that is if you did this line and forgot to do this one, it would change the way this piece looks. So you want to just keep going to all your corners, line up with your vanishing point. Now this letter has a lot of different angles to it, so they can get a little bit tricky with, like, you know, over here where there was just this little tiny piece of it that would be have the 3D effect. So you want to just kind of pick and choose which areas you want to include and which ones you might want to leave off. And that is a decision that is completely up to you. If you don't want to include it, if you don't think it looks right, if you think it is a negative to your drawing instead of a positive thing, then just don't include it. You don't have to include every single line to have your drawing look 3D and have a nice 3D effect to it. So now we're going to work our way out. The R and the A are tucked behind the E, then the D's tucked behind the R, and the M is tucked behind the A. So we're going to work our way out from the middle so that we can continue the overlapping the way that the letters are naturally falling in the drawing. So just keep doing the same thing with each letter. Again, the letter R right here, only a little bit shows. That one I think I might go ahead and include in the drawing. This piece up here isn't going to have anything because it overlaps on the letter. These aren't going to show. You can add this line here since this is a corner, or you can leave it off. That's just kind of going to be a personal choice to you. We talked about the rounded letters in the practice drawings that we did. So typically when you have the inside of a letter where it's rounded, you wouldn't have any lines going to your vanishing point. You would just add the outside edges of your 3D effect. But because this has a straight line, it makes a corner right there. It can be added in and it'll look okay, or you can leave it off. Either way is fine. Over here with the R, since it's over top of the D, these lines would be visible. And again, you can decide if you want to cover up more of that D or not. Here it's not too bad. It's just this little bit of the D that's going to be covered up. Now in the other drawings, we made the 3D effect shorter. We didn't draw it all the way to the vanishing point. But you can also leave your letters coming down to the vanishing point if you have room in your on your paper that you're using, your sketchbook or whatever it is you're using. I'm doing this on cardstock. I do a lot of the drawings that I work on, I do them on cardstock. Most of my graffiti drawings I'll do in a sketchbook just because I like how they look in the sketchbook and I like keeping them in there. But anytime I'm just doing some drawings or practicing, I'll often use just a loose sheet of cardstock because I like the way it takes marker. It's pretty cheap. It works better than just like a cheap drawing paper or a cheap sketchbook or like printer paper. I have some nicer printer paper that I'll use quite a bit. But I also use cardstock a lot. So when working on these in the order that you're doing them in, I did the E, the R, and then the D. and then I'm coming over this way. I could have done the E, the R, the A, the D, and the M. You just need to make sure you're doing whichever letter is further to the front. You want to do that one before you do the ones that are behind it. I tend to kind of jump around a little bit with my drawings. Now right here where this comes in, you can put that line in there or you can leave it off. What I suggest is going ahead and drawing these lines in, and then when you look at it all together, if there's areas you don't like, then you can leave it off. So again, like right here, this really should have a line for that, but I don't like how that looks. So I know I don't want to include that in there. Just keep going through, find all your edges, draw your 3D line coming down. You want to draw lightly, so if you don't like something, you can just erase it. Won't be a big deal. This line right here again is a little tricky. I sometimes don't like how that looks. The only good thing about these smaller edges is that it gives you a little bit more of the 3D surface to look at. Sometimes it makes your drawing look better, it enhances it, and sometimes it doesn't. That's a decision you need to make when working on your own drawing. If you think it adds to the drawing, leave it. If you think it takes away from the drawing, don't include it. Because all of your main areas are gonna include your 3D effect, and that's the important part. All these big chunks, those are the ones that are really gonna make your letters pop and give it that 3D effect. These little areas that are barely visible, they're not gonna change your drawing a whole lot for the better anyway. But if you were to include every single line that technically would be drawn in for your 3D, then it actually can hurt your drawing. So again, just something you need to decide on. If you think it adds, if you think it doesn't add to it. You do want to make sure you have enough lines coming down for your 3D effect from the bottoms. That's a big one. A few from the top. If they're going to be visible, you want to include them. And then enough of them in the center of your letters so that the overall image has the 3D effect. And what made me think of this was this inside of the M. There's not a whole lot going on in here, but just adding this little bit right here, and all I did was came down here and tightened this drawing up a little bit so I had better edges, and then added in that 3D effect. That makes a big difference from having that little bit in there and leaving it off, in my eyes. You might not agree, and that's okay. We don't all view art the same. So if you don't like it, don't put it in. If you think it takes away from your overall drawing, then don't include it. Now, another thing you can do, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but when you're lining up your drawings, what I'm doing is sometimes using one edge of the ruler and sometimes I'm using the other. And I'm doing that so I can better see the rest of the drawing and kind of picture what it's going to look like and if I think I'm going to like it or I'm not going to like adding those lines. It just helps you. So if I use this edge, I can see how much of this line's going to show, where if I use this edge, I can't. So I'll flip it line it up on this other side of the ruler, and I can see that this line is going to be tight up against the line of the letter, so I don't want to add that. Another thing you could do if you wanted to add some extra pieces, you could always offset it a little bit. This one would be too much, but you can move off of that vanishing point slightly. You don't want to go too far because it's going to be obvious, but you can come off of it just slightly if you think there needs to be a line there and it doesn't quite line up with your vanishing point. It's not going to hurt your drawing a lot. But again, you don't want to go too far off. That's if I had this line coming way off this way, just kind of in a random direction, you can tell that it doesn't line up with all the other lines. So you can't really do that. But if it's close and you want to give it a little bit more room, you can come off just slightly and see how it looks. If you do it and it doesn't look right to you, then don't put it in there, just erase it. So I think that's pretty much it for this drawing. Move it so you can see it better. We have all the main parts coming off for our 3D. This I feel like could have something, but it's going to butt up right against that other line, so we're not going to worry about that. This one comes all the way down to the vanishing point, and where the other ones, we cut them off shorter, and you could cut them off way down here. You could cut them off up higher. You can leave them coming all the way to the vanishing point. If you are going to do this as a finished drawing, you would want to erase that where the dot's at the bottom. And typically when you do your 1-point perspective drawings, you're not going to make that dot, that vanishing point, you're not going to make it real defined anyway. I do on the videos just so they're easier for you guys to see. And I also draw darker than I normally would so that the camera picks it up a little bit better. But you would want to draw your lines maybe a little bit lighter so you can erase them if you need to. And then when you go over your pencil lines with a marker and clean it up a little bit, all this stuff will be cleaner. You'll see the lines a little bit better. But before you do that, you want to make sure you have everything drawn out the way you want it. Everything looks correct. And you don't have a bunch of lines all pushed in together that are too close and kind of muddy it up a little bit. So that's it for this one. This is how you do an entire word in 3D. And I will catch you in the next lesson. Well, how'd you do? Did you make some of your own artwork? I hope you did. I hope you felt encouraged and motivated to start some of your own work. And I hope you feel inspired to keep working on your art. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos from us when they get posted. I'll talk to you soon. Happy creating!